only thing we have to
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters. We'll bring you the news and reviews of your favorite brews. I am Dan Baker, joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
and of course the demented and fermented
Wayne Baker.
This is the second episode in a row we are featuring a brewery from the other side of the state, the evil Pittsburgh. I kid. I love the city. It's a good beer town. It's a good town overall, and I'm excited that we get to have another brewery on. And those who may have listened to the last episode and have a keen ear may have remembered me say that this was the one and only brewery I got to go to when I was in Pittsburgh, which was great. We have joining us from 412 Brewing,
Adam Bay, a.k.a. Wrestler Happy Hour.
Wrestler Happy Hour. I love that. Well, Adam, thank you for joining us, man. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And just to kind of expound on that, so in the state of Pennsylvania, there are two indie superstar professional wrestlers to own a brewery. Myself at 412 Brewery and Tony Deppen at Pilgaroo over in Pottsville.
Hey, we know them.
Guru, of course, yes.
So many questions I can ask you about everything you just said.
Absolutely. There's no shortage of content when I'm around.
That's wonderful. That's what we love to hear. Oh, man. Well, I mean, I'm sure we can already tell that we're going to have a hell of a time, and it's going to be a fantastic episode. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way for now. Remember, you're listening to this now. You can find us online, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We're at Beer Busters. Facebook, we're Beer Busters Podcast. There's beerbusterspodcast.com/shop. YouTube.com/beerbusterspodcast. Wayne puts together the Happy Fun Time videos. And there's patreon.com/beerbusters, where you get access to cool things like behind the scenes and last call and all the other little goodies for as little as $1 a month. And if you donate at a certain tier and you wish to do so, you can have your name read out at the patron roll call at the end of the game.
That's right. Patreon.com/beerbusters. Also go to google.com, hit enter, and then type in Beerbusters and just click on everything that comes up.
Hit enter. Can't forget that step. Yeah, well, housekeeping is out of the way. So, okay, you're a wrestler, Adam.
Correct.
There's so much. All right. Well, okay. I'm gonna put that in the back pocket for now because I want to ask so many things about so many things. But 412 in Pittsburgh, fairly close to PNC Park. I went to a ball game and afterwards walked over to the brewery. How long has the brewery been around? I know this is going to be a twofold question and a twofold answer, but how long has the brewery been there overall?
So you are correct that it's going to be a two-part answer. So 412 Brewery first opened in April of 2019. Now, the second part to that is our ownership group. We purchased 412 Brewery at the beginning of this year. So it's been around for almost 3 years, but the new regime, new library of products, new standards has been around for most of 2021.
All right. So what led to you wanting to buy a brewery then?
So of our ownership group of 5 people, 4 of us were previously with another brewery. And when we left brewery, just like, you know what, we want to find a brewery of our own where we can run things with our vision and our philosophy and our approach in mind. So, with the various options that we were looking into, we finally settled on 412 because the prior owner of 412, he mentioned that he was willing to sell it. And we're like, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of break in, get ourselves established and get rolling. And here we are.
That is awesome. It's you don't hear every day that somebody buys a brewery during a pandemic.
Yeah, go figure. No one ever woke up saying it is my dream in life to buy a brewery during a pandemic.
Right. I mean, I have a lot of dreams, and I have a lot of dreams about the pandemic nowadays, but hey, let's not go down that road quite yet. But that's cool. So you have the brewery. So I was there. I was telling you right before we started recording, I was there over Memorial Day weekend, went out for a baseball game, wound up walking over to the brewery, and man, did I have a blast. Such a cool environment. The beers were great. I checked my Untapped. I think I only checked one in, but I know I had multiples. I had the Kolsch, that one for sure.
Yes.
It was so
And I'm
damn
glad
good.
you mentioned the Kolsch. Sorry, forgive me for interrupting.
Oh, please, go
but
ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned the Kolsch because our newest, that was our first batch of Kolsch. So we just put our second batch of the Kolsch on tap the other day, and it is even better than the first batch. I can very comfortably tell you that because we did some tweaks and dialed it in even better, and it is truly what you want out of a Kolsch.
Oh, that's great to hear. I mean, it was already delicious the first time, so it can only, I guess, if it only gets better, it means I got to go back. Oh, darn.
Like what we say around here is you can't go wrong with a Kolsch.
That is true. Well, I don't know. I've had some Kolsches that went wrong.
I have too, and trust me, when a Kolsch goes wrong, it goes really wrong.
Yeah.
So, but I can tell you that our brewer, he loves traditional styles. He loves crispy boys, and this Kolsch was brewed with passion because lagers and pilsners are truly his passion. So, this was brewed with love.
Oh, that's so great. I wish I checked the rest of them in because I can't remember what they were. I know you said you had a Mexican lager at the time, and the Mole Stout. I feel like I had, oh God, I don't remember. This is why I should be better at checking these things in.
Well,
Dan
Dan was.
I will say this. So back, I want to say in May, we actually had 3 big beers on tap, and 2 of the 3 were actually guest taps. Because the Mole Stout was our beer. We also had the Hop Farm Belgian Quad, which was over 11% ABV. And we had the East End Rye Gratitude, which is also over 11% ABV. So, who knows? You may have, flown a little too close to the sun and had some, beer Icarus action going on.
Probably. I did have the East End one. I did check that in on the same day. The 3 I checked in from Pittsburgh were the East End, the Big Hop American Ale, Iron City Beer, because you have to. I had that at the ball game. And then the Cali Kolsch.
Right.
Yeah, when Dan was trying to figure out what beers he had, I was going to ask you, how many taps do you guys have at the brewery?
At the brewery, we have 8 taps. But if we have beer in cans that are not on tap, we are willing to pour from can to glass.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
Okay. I was going to say if the number of taps was like less than 12, then I would say it's probably a safe bet that Dan tried everything while he was there.
That is a
that's
safe
where we
bet.
set
I mean,
the bar.
You go to a brewery, if there's 8 beers on tap, I can drink a flight of 8 beers. Easy
exactly.
enough, try them all.
Exactly. I know my friend that I was with took a couple of 4-packs home of something. I think he got a Crowler or something else, and he had nothing but great things to say too. I wish I could remember. He's a fan of like hazy IPAs, so I don't know if you guys had any of those on around then.
Yep.
I feel like you have to have that
no.
on at any given point.
Oh, well, here's the reality of things. And funny, you mentioned that because when I was at Necromancer has a little event going on called like the night before Krampus or something. And there are 10 different breweries there. One of them was Two Phrase Brewing. And I was having the conversation with one of the owners and brewers from Two Phrase, and they are starting to really dial it in now. So kudos to them because they just opened up like in springtime, and they're picking it up nicely. And I was talking to him, and he was just like, you know what? We do some great Germanic styles. They have a Schwarz beer on that's actually really solid, but the Schwarz beer is not what brings people in the door. He was like, we got to brew good hazies. So you brew hazies that brings people in the door, and then they'll try the other styles. So, that's kind of our thing. We have 2 hazies on tap right now. What we try to do is we try to have a standard hazy and a fruited hazy on tap. So that way we have something that differentiates the 2. And that brings people in the door. You say you have 2. I mean, heck, right now we have 2 hazies and 2 big stouts on tap, and that's what brings people in the door. But, the fact that I can vouch for our Kolsch is one of the best in town. I have no hesitation. In fact, other brewers in town will say our Kolsch is one of the best in town. And, but that's not what brings people, that doesn't have people knocking down the door. But if you have that when people need a change of pace, it works out great.
I think there's a certain kind of beer drinker that the Schwarz beer would draw in, including the 3 of us. But I also don't know, Do people that walk in for the hazies then go to like the short beer or to the other stuff? Because I can't like most of the people I know that drink hazies, that's all that they drink. They don't want to deviate from that at all. So I applaud the ones who do. I wish I could find them.
Well, truth be told, here's the thing. There are a lot of people that start off with the hazies, and then they're thinking, do you have something lighter to end the night? Because the two hazies that we have on tap right now, one is over 7% ABV and the other 6% ABV. One of the things we have on tap right now is actually a mango lager. It's a mango light lager that's 4.4% ABV. And they're just like, you know what? That's a great way to finish the night. So it's one of those where when they're trying to decide, do I want another beer, that actually kind of makes the decision for them to where they're like, you know what, at 4.4% ABV, yeah, I'll do that.
See, we figured it out. We figured out the trick to convert the hazy lovers to lager drinkers. Is you just make the hazy IPAs, bump it up to like that 7-8% range, and then slide in with a nice lager that's around the session, 4.5%. That's the trick. I like that trick.
Yeah, just call me C. Montgomery Beers, right?
Very cool.
I love
Excellent.
that. Yes.
I'm a huge Simpsons fan, so that will always fly with me.
So, Adam, I have to ask. We talked a little bit about how you came to the brewery, a little bit about the history of the brewery. I need to know more about you. So we have in our notes here that you came from Houston. You've worked in IT. We found out you're a wrestler and you're a brewery owner. How did all this come to be?
Well, here's the thing. Houston was sort of a transitional place. So I was in Houston for a year before I moved to Pittsburgh. But prior to that, I've lived in Charleston, South Carolina. I've lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I grew up in New York City. So and there are a few other stops in between. So I've lived many places. But when I settled into Pittsburgh, I've worked in IT it's 2021. So I've worked in IT for over 23 years. So that was one of my primary personal attributes. I've been in professional wrestling for over 26 years. So that's probably been the item that's been with me the majority of my adult life. And the brewery thing, I actually got into craft beer about 12 years ago. Some friends turned me on to craft beer because prior to that, I was more of a Heineken drinker. And once I got turned into craft beer, it was off to the races at that point. And now, many, many years later, I am a co-owner of a brewery. Go figure. I mean, it's one of those where the interest became a hobby, became a passion, and now became part of my vocation.
Very cool. Well, that's an awesome trajectory. And I mean, you've been all over and you've done a lot of things. That's really cool. Really cool experiences there. That's awesome.
Have your two worlds ever collided? Have you considered doing a beer collaboration with any of your fellow wrestlers?
I thought you meant the IT world and the beer world.
I mean, or that.
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned both of those. So as far as beer and wrestling, so Tony Deppen, one of the co-owners of Pilgrim Brewing, so he and I are both super indie wrestlers. And the first time we met each other was actually in Tampa earlier this year during WrestleMania weekend, because we both had bookings for major promotions down in Tampa during WrestleMania weekend. So that's actually how we met. We didn't meet in Pennsylvania. We met in Tampa during WrestleMania weekend for wrestling events. So, and that's how we initially got connected. And then we got to know each other better. In fact, in Pottsville, Pilgrim put on the Schuyler County Beer Fest back in July, and they invited us out. So 412 actually poured at the Schuyler County Beer Fest. And then Pilgrim poured at the Drink the Cookie Table Festival in Pittsburgh last month. So we got to hang out a good bit. We both know a lot of people in wrestling since we're both super indie and well known in the industry. So that's where the worlds collided in beer and wrestling. Now, to also pick up on that on the next level, I was supposed to have a beer festival with wrestling back in September, but that got postponed indefinitely because I canceled that event due to the Delta infection surge. Mm-hmm. So I was like, the last thing I needed was for my first event to be a super spreader event. and that the last thing I needed was to be laughed out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I postponed it. So it'll be sometime between spring and summer next year. I will probably have roughly 16 to 20 breweries, and it will be a wrestling and beer festival where a number of the breweries will collab with a wrestler in the event.
That's so cool. I have a question, and I was racking my brain to figure out why I recognize the name Tony Deppen, except for like we've interviewed some guys from Pilgaroo.
Yep.
Was he the one that got into a Twitter war with Ron Funches over wrestling?
Yes.
Yeah,
because he
I
actually-
knew it.
He wrestled Ron Funches.
Oh, did they actually do
couple
that?
months ago.
I didn't realize they did that.
Yes.
Oh, wait, no,
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
I heard a podcast where he was talking about it.
Yeah, well, actually, believe it or not, Ron Funches put a Canadian destroyer on him.
I have
Yeah,
to admit,
actually,
I don't know what that is.
on Tony's timeline, he put a clip of Ron power bombing him through a table and putting a Canadian destroyer on him for the finisher. And I believe, somewhere on that show, he ended up hugging Paul Scheer. For those of you who don't know who Paul Scheer is, he's Andre from the League.
Yeah. Oh, he's so great. I love Paul Scheer, and I love Funches.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, man.
yeah.
That's
Actually, here's what. Actually, the commentary on that was hilarious because the commentary called that Canadian destroyer the Funch Rap Supreme.
That was pretty good. I like that.
Yeah, I forget what podcast I was listening to, but Funches was on, and he was talking about it. And he said he had a good time. And did it end up being
here's the
good
thing.
jest? Or
Funches would tell you. Well, there's two things I'll tell you about Funches.
Okay.
Funches will tell you if he wasn't a comedian, he would have gone into pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And then two, if you've watched Ron Funches for a while, he lost a lot of weight.
He did.
I
Yeah.
mean, he looked in pretty decent shape. He looked like he was over 100 pounds lighter than his premium comedy days when he did this match.
Yeah, he was talking about his training routine. Like, he wouldn't have been able to do the match had he not lost all the weight, which is
Correct.
another like
Yeah.
added benefit to going through that. And that's really cool. And so I have to ask, do you think at your event there's a chance that Ron Funches might show up?
I don't know how many beer events Ron Funches has ever crashed, but I'm hoping to make this an annual event. You guys know that Chavo Guerrero has his own Mexican lager, right?
I didn't.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Chavo Guerrero has his own Mexican lager, and he also helps represent a cigar brand. So I happen to be a cigar guy, and
Me too.
Chavo and Frankie Kazarian were in town for representing American Rebel cigars, and for future reference, don't be surprised if Chavo shows up to a future beer and wrestling festival I put on.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We got some, maybe have some celebrity cameos at these festivals. I'm liking this.
Well, I'll say this. I'm pretty well connected in the industry, mainly because of my longevity. That's one thing that some of the top end guys will be able to say, hey, this guy that no one's ever heard of, I know him because he's been around forever.
That's true. I do have to ask for the uninitiated. I just need to know, in layman's terms, what is a Canadian destroyer?
I thought you were going to
So-
ask what is the Funch Rap Supreme.
So a Canadian destroyer is basically a move that it looks like a pile driver setup, but it's like a forward flip somersault pile driver. So I guarantee you can find it either on the web or on YouTube somewhere, or even on Tony Deppen's timeline. He actually put a clip of Ron Funches putting on the Canadian destroyer, and the date was mid-September. So if you're on Tony Deppen's timeline, scroll up to mid-September, and you'll find the Ron Funches clips.
I think Dan's looking for.
We're gonna have to go back. He tweets a lot. We got to go
tweets
back
a
a
lot.
long way.
Yeah, not Twitter, but I mean on Facebook. I mean, mind you,
Oh.
I haven't. Yeah, I mean, I'm friends with Tony on Facebook. So Anthony Deppen, if you look up on his timeline, go back to mid-September, and you will probably find clips of the. Well, no, not you'll probably. You will definitely find clips from the Ron Funches map, the power bomb through the table, and the Canadian destroyer, and the Paul Scheer clip. All those are on his timeline.
Very cool. Well, to our listeners, if you're wondering what all of these things you're hearing about look like,
Right.
now you know where to go. He said Canadian destroyer, and I just kept thinking of Kevin Keller.
Oof.
That's
Kevin Keller. Oh man.
Oh, you know Kevin.
Well,
Yeah,
if he poured at that
I guess,
beer
yeah, that
fest,
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's where I met Kevin, and Kevin met me because Tony introduced Kevin to me.
cool. Very cool.
That's awesome. Kevin Keller makes all kinds of connections.
Oh yeah, I was going to say nothing close to mine, but yeah, he can do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I have too many worlds colliding between IT, wrestling, and beer.
I can imagine.
That's too many worlds, man.
Yeah, it definitely is.
not that I want to interrupt the wrestling talk party, but while Dan is scrolling through Facebook, so Adam, the reason that I was interested in your story and talking to you is because I understand that you are part of the Pittsburgh Brewery Diversity Council, which we actually discovered this when we were interviewing Tara Nurin a few episodes ago about her new book. And we came across an article that she had written about Pittsburgh, and your group and you specifically were mentioned in the article. And we were like, no way, we need to talk to this guy. So can you tell us a little bit at first, what exactly is the Pittsburgh Brewery Diversity Council, and perhaps what sparked this, the formation of this organization?
Sure. So to kind of fill you in on both those aspects, so I am the president of the Pittsburgh Brewery Diversity Council, and the idea behind this is to both bring awareness and to help cultivate an opportunity to increase participation in the beer industry, whether it's as a consumer or on the industry side for people who don't fit the cis white het demographic in Pittsburgh. And why it matters to me specifically with Pittsburgh is the relative level of diversity in Pittsburgh compared to any other notable city is kind of lagging. So considering I moved here to Pittsburgh from Houston, it's something that I specifically noticed. Now, mind you, there are a lot of people who live in Pittsburgh, talking about, I'd like to see more diversity, but because they've always been in Pittsburgh, they're just accustomed to the scene or the relative progress in the scene based on what they've seen before. Now, for me, I grew up in New York City. I've been in Atlanta. I've been in Houston. I lived in Houston. And to come to Pittsburgh, especially from Houston, which was very diverse, because I lived in central Houston, I was in Midtown Houston, so it was extremely diverse in the beer industry, not just from an industry standpoint, but from a consumer standpoint. And when I come to Pittsburgh, and if not for the fact that I have a very bold personality, I can imagine myself feeling intimidated about participating in the beer industry in Pittsburgh. So, or participating in consumership, if I didn't have that, I give 0 F's about what goes on. I'm just going to do what I do. So that being said, when I go from tap room to tap room and I see that the circumstance or the landscape looks very homogenous, for lack of a better word, that's when I'm just like, yeah, I can keep thinking about this, or I can start doing something about this. So last year, I put together the Pittsburgh Brewery Diversity Council and put together a council of people that I knew who were in or tangential to the industry that can provide different insights. Because, what I wanted to do was look beyond just my own personal experiences, but also think about aggregating as many different experiences as possible, as many different perspectives as possible, to have as broad a perspective in terms of what we see, what issues are there, and how to tackle them. And just to kind of quickly go down the list of who all I have on the council, Sydney Mealy, who's been in the industry a number of years, and she's also part of our taproom staff. We have Kevin Stewart, who is a longtime Pittsburgh resident. He was a competitive home brewer, and he was also on the Beerland episode that focused on Pittsburgh 3 years ago. That was on Vice TV. We have Lauren Hughes, who was also on that same episode of Beerland, who is the head brewer at Necromancer. We have Mikey Oriano, who is an Afro-Latino guy who's very popular in the beer industry here. We have Adam Sorma, who is one of the most popular people in the beer industry here. He happens to be South Asian, but he is one of the most charismatic people you will ever meet. He is the taproom manager at Trace Brewing. Let's see. We have Larry Lozier, who does work with Mindful Brewing as well as Boyd and Blair Distilling. And let's see, Thais Brooks, who used to be an assistant taproom manager at Penn Brewing. And I think I covered everybody in that list. But, I'm sorry. How could I forget Dennis Guy? I think you guys know Dennis.
Yeah.
Dennis, the running joke, apparently, I discovered this recently because Justin from Tattered Flag, I thought he was kidding with me. He was like, "Hey, Dennis, how's it going?" And I'm just like, very funny, Justin. And then later I found out he actually thought I was Dennis.
Oh, my God.
So I've made it a point with Dennis that he and I need to hang out more at places just to kind of mess with people.
That's fabulous. Doesn't Dennis have a little bit more facial hair than you, though?
Well, actually, I had as much facial hair as him until I recently clipped it. But otherwise, we both had very bushy beards.
That's fabulous. Yeah, Dennis is a great guy, podcaster, the First Sip Brew Box guy. He was actually, last time I was in Pittsburgh drinking at Trace, he was at the table behind me. Like, he's like, I hope that's like what we are to the Philly beer scene. Like, people are like, "Hey, there's the Beer Busters," because I'm out in Pittsburgh. I'm like, dude, there's Dennis.
Well, Dennis is, what he's doing with his operation is actually pretty diverse. I mean, between the Brewbox subscription and the podcasting and the different elements that he's trying to cultivate, he's trying to juggle a lot of things with what he does.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys have some projects going on. I learned about the She Knows Beer project when I was out there. I picked up some cans. This is the dancing gnome iteration of the beer, which is really tasty. So talk a little bit about this project.
Sure. So She Knows Beer, I will say one of the primary people to kind of start the idea on this project was Sydney Mealy, and she was our taproom manager at 412, and she what inspired this was she was being mansplained one night while she was bartending. And Sydney Mealy, let me tell you, she's in the top 10% here of beer knowledge. And what happened was, I wish I could kind of put into words her level of beer knowledge. There was actually a Hop Nation podcast from early this year where she dropped a lot of knowledge. And her level of beer education is top notch. She's only in her mid-20s and she knows way more about beer than I knew before I was 40, just to put that in perspective. So, if nothing else, it's my way of recognizing the level of knowledge that existed, or the level of knowledge that exists within her, from an age where I would have never even been able to hold a candle. And so industry-wide, it just happened to, our first project or first release happened to coincide with Rat Magnet's, submission of all the issues of harassment and any type of marginalization of women in the beer industry. And it's not that we were hopping on this, that we had this project going a couple of months before Rat Magnet published all those anonymous stories, but it was something that happened to align really well, and it's something that we wanted to bring attention to. So the first release was actually a collaboration between Necromancer and Trace. The feature person for the industry for that release was Lauren Hughes, who is the head brewer at Necromancer Brewing. And I mean, that's where I was earlier tonight because Lauren's a good friend of mine. She's on the council and I want to support Necromancer. They had the night before Krampus Festival going on, which had like 10 breweries there. And one of the breweries was Trace, and Adam Sorma was pouring. So again, supporting one of my fellow council members, because at the end of the day, I love supporting my friends. Amazingly enough, I don't drink as much as I used to because I'm approaching 50 and health reasons and all that fun stuff. But at the same time, I want to support, my friends and those who support my causes. So I will say PBDC was my baby, and folks like Adam and Lauren and Sydney and Mikey and et cetera, they all came on board to help my cause. And I can't say enough about that. And I, can't thank them enough and can't support them enough for the fact that this idea that just started with like, man, I'd like to see things better. And they hopped on board and want to help me make it better.
And Necromancer also did the Brave Noise collaboration
yes.
as well.
So their Brave Noise release, actually PBDC was the beneficiary of that release. And, I can't say enough good things about Lauren. I mean, I've had many frank conversations with Lauren, and I will say this: Western PA is a tough place in many ways. Like, Lauren being a female head brewer and also being a queer woman, it becomes tough because, with so much underrepresentation of women in the back of house positions, that's hard enough because, when she gets approached, it's almost like she's being put in a position where she has to be a spokesperson. And even more so as a queer woman, she becomes that token queer woman to other people where she has to feel like she has to prep herself to be a spokeswoman. And it's tough. And I get it. I get it completely. And, that's one of the reasons why I get along so well with Lauren, because I understand that it's a tough scenario where you can't just be your human self.
And shout out to them. Hop Culture just released their top 12 new breweries of 2021, and Necromancer is on that list.
Necromancer
and so
and
is Trace
are both on that list.
Yeah, 2 from Pittsburgh. And Lauren, did I read correctly that she is only the second ever head brewer of a Pittsburgh brewery woman, the second woman to be a head brewer?
Yes, because Meg Seastead was the first one.
Right.
She's now at North Country, which is north of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But when she was at Rock Bottom, she was the first female head brewer.
So cheers to Lauren, that making a splash and getting some recognition out there. And that's awesome. I have not been to Necromancer yet. So that is definitely towards the top of my list next time I'm on the west side of our state.
So let me tell you, just to kind of fill you in, one of the ideas behind Necromancer, what does a necromancer do? They raise the dead. So
Yes.
The idea behind that, or like behind that, they're trying to brew a lot of styles that are either not found commonly or not. Like right now, they have an alt beer on tap that is actually pretty solid. It's a sticky alt. And, that's kind of what they're doing. If you look at their beer library over time, you'll see a lot of styles that are not common. And that's kind of what they're doing. Their whole thing is they want to mix. I mean, don't get me wrong. They'll brew hazy IPAs. They'll brew a stout. They'll brew, commonly seen styles, but they'll mix in styles that you don't see often because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to resurrect styles that are just not commonly seen.
That's amazing. I love that. And we were learning as we were reading the article and learning about Necromancer and what that means and all the awesome styles that she has and is brewing there. So and you know what? Brewing stuff that isn't sexy is actually becoming sexy in the beer industry right now, I feel like. I don't know if COVID and like having extra tank space for a while is what motivated brewers to do this, but I love that we're seeing styles that we haven't seen on a regular basis.
That and, one thing I'll say, Steph, that'll indirectly lead into another thing that I want to bring up. So it works if you have the social capital to do so.
True.
So, Lauren and Mikey Oriano is also at Necromancer. He's in front of house at Necromancer. So the two of them have a lot of social capital, and it's something they can pull off because when you have the social capital, and that's also one of my strategic elements with forming the council. If I want to make progress, I had to bring on people that can help cultivate progress. All the information in the world on itself, or all the attempts at sharing knowledge in the world in and of itself won't go very far if you don't have the people that can deliver the information to others in order to receive it. Because, I can keep spouting off all sorts of facts. But if no one listens, then I'm not accomplishing anything.
Right.
And, when I brought people on board like a Sidney Mealy or an Adam Sorma or a Mikey Oriano or a Lauren Hughes, it's because not just because they understand, but also because they have reach. I mean, if Lauren says something, people will listen. If Mikey says something, people will listen. If Adam Sorma says something, people will listen. Me, I'm still I just moved to Pittsburgh 5.5 years ago. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm still kind of an outsider. I'm this big city outsider trying to bring in big city things to a small city. So, that's one of the obstacles I have to deal with, and that's okay. But I have on board people who believe in the cause, who actually can deliver the message.
So what's next for the council?
So we will continue with She Knows Beer. What we hope to do, just to give some insight, is, when we have enough people, there are breweries that are asking to be part of the rotation. So once we reach a point where we've had enough breweries that have done this, we will templatize this akin to the Black is Beautiful project, to where we'll set up an informational packet so that any brewery in the country that wants to do this, here's the informational packet, which lists the requirements, has the logos and things like that. So you can follow through with it on your own without us having to step in, and any brewery will be able to do that. So what we're doing right now is trying to gather information, kind of learn from where we can fine tune this, so that way this can be a self-sustaining project. Because at the end of the day, it's not something we're monetizing. It's just a cause where we want to bring attention to women in the beer industry. And if we have it packaged up to where any brewery can do it, then that's a success in my book, to where it becomes available to everyone, and all the information is there, and they can run with it, bring awareness, as well as support a female-based charity, so you can do some greater good. So the next project that we're also working on, since the She Knows Beer project brings awareness, we figure we should also look at the aspect of celebration. So the next project we're working on in terms of developing is called Culture Shock, where we celebrate different cultures. We can partner up with a business in a specific culture. The beer brewed will represent an element from that culture, and we can celebrate a culture. And that's our next project.
That's fabulous.
I like that, yeah.
Now, what if someone is listening and they're saying, I want to start something like this in my own city or in my own group of breweries? What advice would you give to someone that would want to start a council similar to this somewhere else?
I would say, please reach out to me, because at the end of the day, this is not something I'm monetizing. I don't make a single cent off of this. This is something where my goal is to improve the landscape of craft beer. I mean, I'm in the industry now, so, I want my industry to be better. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to share ideas, because ultimately the goal is increasing participation in the craft beer industry. The way I see it is, if participation is increased beyond just the typical, cis white het male that you see, that accounts for 80% of craft beer participation. If you get more than that, then you have a larger pool to pull from for potential back of house candidates, because you never know who has the next great idea for beer. And if you have a limited population, then you're limiting the potential pool for the next great idea in beer.
I love it. And I love what I'm still processing about your celebration of cultures. That's really exciting to me. And I think it was Dave from Trace that we talked to last episode who brought up how there's this palette that's untapped in the beer world, and all these cultures and these foods and these ingredients that most breweries are unaware of. And it's so exciting to not only are we increasing the diversity of the people in the beer industry, but also the flavors and the different beers that we can experience. And so I think that's a really, really cool project to spotlight that aspect of diversity.
I mean, and it's not just flavors that are discovering, but we're also discovering things that might have existed in the past that have been lost. I mean, one of the things that, especially with the last Barrel and Flow Festival, I got to speak to, I mean, when it was Fresh Fest previously a couple of years ago, I got to speak to Celeste Beatty, Garrett Oliver, Lady Lager from Rhythm Brewing, and just to kind of think about the things or what all went into it and how there's so much history that's just lost and created a gap in terms of what was going on with regards to beer and the evolution of beer in global history. So when you think about it, when thousands of years ago, if you look at when cooking was traditionally looked at as a gender role for females, naturally brewing was. So women were brewing the beer because brewing was a culinary art. And that got lost in the mix somewhere and was lost for a very long time. Women were the first brewers because brewing was a culinary art. And, that's the kind of thing that we're discovering as we unearth things, uncover things, whether it's sociological understanding, historical understanding, or discovering artifacts. We're finding out that, hey, how do we tap into this and how do we discover the extreme positive elements of this and cultivate it to enhance what we have now?
I love it. Shall we take a pause and play a game, perhaps?
Oh, I'm good for games.
While
We can do that.
we can see Adam's beautiful face.
If we want to play a game, we can play a game.
I do enjoy. I still have my She Knows beer, and I also want to mention while Wayne is getting set up for the game, and I don't think I said this out loud. I think it was just in my head. The She Knows beer is not a specific beer style. Every release has been a very different beer as well. Unlike Black is Beautiful and Brave Noise, which have been centered around one particular recipe. I think that's an extra cool level to this project, that it really gives the brewers involved some creative freedom to really create something that's whatever they want.
Right. So the idea was basically we want the woman or women being featured for the She Knows Beer project to drive the actual beer. So the Dancing Gnome beer you have, Katie Sullivan is the head brewer at Dancing Gnome, and she decided to brew a red ale, which is what you're drinking. So she had absolute direct input because she was going to brew it. Let's see. Necromancer did a blood orange IPA. It was the Necromancer Trace Collab. That was a blood orange IPA. Let's see. Mindful did a pomegranate sour.
Whoa.
And Acclamation did a maple Dunkelweizen.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Oh.
Okay. Oh.
A Dunkelweizen.
Whoa.
Uh-huh.
Whoa, I want to try that. So I have a question about that too. So if it's been a different style basically every time, if you're going to templatize it and try to make it along the same lines or the same scale, let's say, as Black is Beautiful, granted, like Steph had said, that was kind of focused around one particular style, but they encourage breweries to riff on it a little bit. Is that kind of what you think you'll do with this, or do you just say, like, here are the requirements, just have fun?
That's essentially what we're going for. And at the same time, I want to say, let the women that you're highlighting to recognize this for be the ones who drive what beer you brew.
Great.
Because, there are a lot of, what we don't want is to be in a situation where breweries with like production schedules the 6 months out, can't really brew a separate style. We want to leave room for them to be able to say, hey, let's take something on our production schedule and just slightly, if we slightly tweak it and be able to brew this so that way it fits their production schedule. Like Dancing Gnome, you have to imagine how busy Dancing Gnome's got to be. So, when it involved a beer that fit their production schedule, that made it better because we love Dancing Gnome. Dancing Gnome, the guys there, despite brewing like some of the best beer in the state and being as popular as they are, they're very good guys. And, that's kind of hard to say in any industry, whether it's beer or otherwise. When you're on the top tier of the curve, obviously you kind of, a lot of folks, regardless of the industry, will kind of feel like they're separate from everything else. No, the guys at Dancing Gnome, super nice guys. I mean, they're so nice. I show up to Dancing Gnome and they're just like, oh, hey, Adam, how's it going? I'm just like, you know my name. Holy crap. And they're like, oh,
And they're like, "This beer's on us." I'm like, "Oh, really?"
Oh, well, that's cool. That's always well and good.
That's always
I mean,
nice.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. What I love about the beer industry is there is that camaraderie. Like, yeah, there are good people, and I'm sure it all came to light recently with the rat magnet stuff that there are some not great people in the business.
Right.
But everybody rallied against that, and it just kind of furthers the fact that craft beer is, or at least is pushing to be, as inclusive an industry as possible. And I really love and admire that because it is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, not just in the beer business, but it's great to see so much change and so much action and so much support in one industry so quickly. I love that so much.
Well, you have to remember, though, we are in a bit of a bubble here. We have been purposefully focusing on people that are pushing for this change. Mm-hmm. And there is still a very, very long path and a very long journey that needs to happen. But yeah, I am very proud to talk to people like Adam.
Yep.
And the initiatives and the projects and the groups of people and the beer collaborations. It definitely does present some hope, but we definitely have a very long journey.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like we're there and the change is all right. Like it's a matter of I even outside of the bubble that I guess we've had on our podcast recently. I still see, Philly breweries and Philly area breweries that are still trying to do a lot to make sure that the conversation doesn't stop and they continue and they act on the things that they want to do and they want to actively make the change. And change does take time. I hear a dog, and that is not a bad thing.
Yay.
We love dogs.
That's one of my, So my fiance has 3 dogs, and 2 of them are GSPs, and one of them's a geriatric golden, and that's one of the pointers. Just apparently might see a deer outside the window, and it's just kind of.
I love goldens. I love dogs in general, but I love goldens. They're so sweet.
Yeah, we like having pet cameos on the podcast.
Yeah, you mentioned
pet cameos, huh?
Dan, you mentioned Philly, and I'm also wondering if it's probably a lot easier to push for things like this in a big city because there is such a tight-knit community of breweries.
Aww.
So, oh my gosh, that dog is freaking adorable. But I think about more rural breweries or breweries that are in towns where maybe they are the only brewery. I wonder if it makes it harder
I would assume so. And I thought about this on a political scale, especially after the last election, not to go overly political. But the more densely populated an area is, the more left-leaning it will be because we see the issues that other people in our area are going through. Whereas in more of a rural area where if you only have that one brewery or whatever in the area, you have a sparse population, which means you're not going to see the challenges that people who are unlike you are going to go through.
Well, that's just it. I mean, out of sight, out of mind,
basically,
applies to so many things, and in many cases, what I've observed is, people, let's be honest, naturally speaking, people are a reflection of their experiences. Yeah. And if they don't see something, they can't properly contextualize it, or even it becomes difficult to acknowledge it exists if you haven't seen it.
And
on that note, let's do
the
something
political
fun.
talk, and let's have some fun to play a game.
Time to play a game.
We saw some puppies. We're drinking beer.
Moo is thinking about jumping on the table. My cat's going to make an appearance at some point. It happens every episode. She's right off camera over here.
I see her.
I invited Jack, but he was not interested.
Oh well. Cheers, Internet, and welcome to Happy Fun Time Games, the podcast trivia segment that loves them crispy boys. We are joined today, you hear his jovial laughter now, by Adam Bay, co-owner of 412 Brewing in Pittsburgh and president of the Pittsburgh Diversity Council, who will be challenging my co-hosts here to an intellectual challenge with absolutely no tangible rewards that we call Happy Fun Time Games. And today's game is There's Weird in My Beer.
Ooh, okay.
So this is a game where I will tell you a little bit about a beer that has a strange, unusual, sometimes gross, sometimes not, bizarre ingredient in it, and I will give you 3 multiple choice options to guess what the weird is in each beer. Pretty straightforward, and we will begin to my left, as we always do with Ann. First up, we have a Märzen, released for Oktoberfest.
Yeah, it worries me that there's weird in this beer.
Well, wait and see. It was released for Oktoberfest just this year. Though a classic lager true to the style in most respects, the brewery teamed up with a well-known snack maker and added their signature product, giving this beer an untraditional twist. Is it pretzels, peanuts, or potato chips?
I'm going to say pretzels.
Dan going with pretzels. Steph, what do you think?
Okay, I've had a Märzen that actually had pretzels in it, so I don't know if that is the beer you're talking about, but you said it was only brewed this year, so I'm thinking, well, is it something different? But I'm going to say pretzels because I know that beer exists.
All right, we've got 2 pretzels so far. Adam, what do you think? Agree or disagree?
I agree simply because of the 3 options you mentioned, pretzels make the most sense to me.
Fair enough.
Which worries me.
Right. Well, so there would be too much oil from peanuts and from potato chips, depending on how the chips were chipped. Chipped? Is that a thing?
How the chips were
How the
chipped.
chips were chipped.
How the chips were chipped. Well, everybody said pretzels. Everybody is correct. It is,
Yay.
in fact, pretzels. It's from Captain Lawrence Brewing in New York, and they collaborated with Pennsylvania's own Snyder's of Hanover
That checks out.
to produce Snyder beer, an Oktoberfest-style lager brewed with the famous pretzels. They say it will transport you straight to the beer garden tents in Munich. So snag your Snyder beer and raise a
That's
prost
not
to what
true.
matters most. I know, exactly.
German Oktoberfest is not a Märzen.
Oh, man.
That's what they said.
Actually, a clearer beer. Okay, that's for another
And
segment.
they probably don't want pretzels in it either.
Right.
Right, Munich. I'm just guessing. I wouldn't
That's
know.
not, that doesn't fall under the Reinheitsgebot. boat. No.
No, not at all. Moving on to our next beer of the game, and Steph is up to guess first on this one. Speaking of Pennsylvania, next up we visit our old favorite, Snitz Creek Brewing in Lebanon. And that is the city and surrounding county in Pennsylvania, not the country in Western Asia, just in case you weren't sure. But Snitz Creek back in 2014 debuted a wheat ale that was also made with a home state favorite. Was this one pretzels, shoe fly pie, or scrapple?
Scrapple.
Steph is going with scrapple. Adam, you're up. What do you think?
You said with a Pennsylvania favorite, I'm going to go with scrapple.
All right. After my own heart, I love scrapple. Dan, what do you think?
Isn't it shoe fly pie?
Is that your guess? I don't know.
No, I want you to tell me. Tell me and then I'll answer. No, I'm going with shoe fly pie.
Dan's going with shoe fly pie. Everybody else went with scrapple. Nobody is correct because it was
pretzels.
pretzels.
Pretzels again?
It was pretzels.
Then what? They have a beer that it's got to be a pun on shoe fly because I very distinctly remember drinking that either on the show or with Justin when I went there.
We've definitely had a shoe fly pie beer on this show. I don't remember if it was from Snitz Creek because I'm sure there's more than one of them out there.
Yeah, there's got to be.
Lancaster Brewing Company does the shoe fly porter. Apparently, Stickman just released a shoe fly beer this week.
Of course they did.
It has the Belschnickel on the can. I kind of want it just for the can.
Well, I'm meeting with Ethan in a little over a week, so I'm going to make sure he brings me some of that.
Well, save me a can, please.
Shoe fly pie. Now I want some scrapple and I want some shoe fly pie.
Together or just in
I
general?
want some scrapple and then shoe fly pie.
See,
for dessert.
it might work because shoe fly pie has molasses, and molasses is akin to syrup, and syrup works with scrapple.
Yeah, but I'm not like a
There we
syrup on the sausage kind of guy. I've never really been that. Like,
You've never made your own maple sausage?
I mean, I've okay. I retract that statement. I've had like
Gotcha.
maple sausage, maple bacon things,
Yeah, there we go.
but I'm not one to pour syrup on. Like I wouldn't do that on top
Oh,
of
see,
scrapple.
no. What you got to do? Don't pour directly on it. You have to.
Right.
You have to order pancakes, drizzle them with syrup, and get a side of scrapple, and then just the scrapple happens to absorb some of the syrup. Not a whole lot. It's not dedicated to the scrapple.
I'm
It's-
okay with that.
Yeah,
If it
it's
happens,
just
it
it's like a
happens,
dabble
you know.
of syrup.
YOLO, live your best life, that kind of thing.
No, I'm not speaking out of personal experience. I promise.
I have never actually had scrapple, so I think I've been vegetarian long enough that it's safe from that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're vegetarian / vegan. Like it makes sense. There should be vegan scrapple.
There is vegan scrapple.
sure.
I have had vegan scrapple.
How is it?
I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to because I've never had actual scrapple. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I wouldn't be like, ooh, vegan scrapple.
I need to find this. And I
That's
need to
if you
try
just
it.
like tofu, cornmeal, and salt.
Probably.
Probably.
Well, for what it's worth, I mean, if we're talking vegan topics, so I got some vegan egg roll wrappers, and tomorrow night I actually picked up some apple pie filling, so I'm going to try to make apple pie egg rolls, and I'm just trying to recapture the old classic apple pie feel with the bubbly lava blistered exterior.
That sounds amazing.
So that's what I'm doing tomorrow night.
Yes,
I
and you
expect
have
a full
to
report.
roll them in cinnamon sugar.
Oh yeah.
Well, funny enough, I actually don't have sugar in the house. So anytime I do anything to sweeten things, it's usually the natural fruit itself, plus some cinnamon and bourbon. That's actually how I sweeten stuff.
Maybe
Now we're
we've been
talking.
doing it wrong the whole time. Cinnamon and bourbon.
I like
sounds
that. I
better.
like that life hack. Just replace sugar with bourbon.
Yeah. Well, I happen to be diabetic, so that's why.
Okay. Fair
Gotcha.
enough. Fair
There
enough.
we go.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, because bourbon itself has almost no sugar. So
Yeah.
Oh, so it's a health drink. Good. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for letting me know that.
exactly.
It's a health drink. Of course it is. Anyway, we have business to attend to here. We have come to the penultimate beer.
Oh
of the game.
man. Okay. All
We
right.
are,
Okay.
we are at our penultimate beer, and Adam, you are going to guess first. Next up, we head back in time to 2012 and down south to Texas, a time and place where one local brewery produced a stout they claim was more than the sum of its parts. It wasn't a pastry stout, but one of those parts did come from the oven. Is it green bean casserole, pretzels, or pot roast?
I'll go with pretzels.
Going with pretzels. Dan, what do you
I'm
think?
gonna say pretzels too. There's a theme.
Everybody
I
saying
swear to God,
pretzels?
if every beer is pretzels,
All right.
Hey, it's like C on multiple choice exams.
right.
Yep. Steph,
Pretzel.
gonna ride the pretzel train?
Ride the
Everybody's saying pretzels. Everybody on the pretzels train, and everyone is correct.
Can I guess preemptively the next one is pretzels?
Specifically sourdough pretzels.
All right,
on this one,
that's allowable.
to be precise. It was made by Martin House Brewing in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yep.
It was brewed with roasted crystal and chocolate malts and over 6 pounds of sourdough pretzels.
Sounds
per
really
pound.
good.
It
That
does
sounds
sound pretty
good.
It doesn't surprise me that was Martin House.
I was gonna say, it's a kind of
Martin House also makes the pickle beers, so the best made pickle
There you go,
beers.
Steph.
They make that, and let's see, they made a beer back in 2015. I want to say it was 2015, 2016 when I lived there. It was called Kafkaesque, and I say this because I had a good friend who is an English PhD, and he spent a lot of time reading Kafka, and he liked to use the word Kafkaesque, and I was like, yeah, you got to have this beer.
Yes. Pretzels, once again, everybody is correct. So we're going to add up the scores to see who goes first, second, third on the last question, but we're tied.
Oh,
We have a rolling German sparkle party right
rolling German
now. Everybody has
Unlike-
2 points.
Unlike rolling German suplexes.
Be a Canadian destroyer. I imagine if it's German, it's probably slightly worse.
Oh, probably.
Well, we're going to go to our final beer of the game, and I guess we're going to start with Dan, since you would be next in the lineup to guess first. Finally, we're in Delaware.
Pretzels.
Right.
Where we find a juicy goza. This beer is not only modeled on, but contains the 3 ingredients of the state's favorite dessert salad.
Wait, what? What?
It's made with strawberries, cream, and a certain counterpoint. Is it crackers, French fries,
Don't say it.
or pretzels?
God fucking damn it. Strawberries, I'm sorry, can you run through the options again that aren't pretzels?
Crackers and French fries.
Crackers. and-
Why bother? I mean, Dan, why
Right,
bother?
I know. I'm like, what makes? I mean, crackers kind of make sense. French fries would worry me, but I have to say pretzels because pretzels
All right, Dan.
Is it A, not pretzel, B, not pretzel,
or C pretzels.
Steph?
Pretzels.
Pretzels? Adam?
Pretzel?
Pretzel. All right, you got to make it official. It is pretzels. Pretzels
everything
all
was
the way down.
pretzels.
It's called Strawberry Pretzel Salad, the name of the
Yeah.
beer and the dish it is based on. The beer is made by Dewey Beer Company in Dewey Beach, Delaware. The dish,
Of course they would make that shit.
now I have never heard of this. The dish is apparently made like a casserole.
They have it at Shady Maple.
Do they? I've never had this. Maybe I have, and I just don't remember. It's got like a pretzel crust, a cream center. Yeah, it's Steph's showing us a picture, and like glazed strawberries on top. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had it, but it
You know
sounds
what would go
good.
really well with that? Scrapple.
I could see that. You know what else goes really well? Pretzels. So we add up the scores real quick here to see who our big winners are. And for the first time in a long time, we have ourselves a German Sparkle Party.
I like German Sparkle Party.
A 3-way tie. Everybody has 3 out of 4 points. This has simultaneously been an ode to pretzels, an eccentric piece of performance art, and a dumb joke for my own amusement. Thank you
That
for
worked. I
participating.
think it amused all of us.
And it's a Beer Busters first. This is the first time the answer was the same for
Yep.
every question.
Yep. Thank you all for playing. If you're watching this video, do the kind things that we'd like you to do in response to that activity. But now we are going to shout out to our most generous patrons on Patreon. We thank you very sincerely to the following in a new and improved randomized order, because I realized I was copying the list. The names are like always in the same order, so I just randomized them this time. So here we go. We'll start with Jen McDonald,
There's a hot dog I have to grab.
PA Brew Review,
I love how big it is.
Eric Dixon,
Penis works as well as cheese.
Dana,
Losers.
James Lamberg,
No.
Chris Mahoney,
Dan, you loser.
Sean Sullivan.
And I'm Wayne, and I'm taking an opportunity piece.
That's a good one. Brian Mills,
We even soak the beans.
Jill Chivers,
Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
the one and only that's no baloney, Joe Mansell,
And don't try it, motherfuckers.
Joe Simmons.
Tofurkey.
Oh, appropriate. And Ben Mangle.
Oh, I say that.
If you want to find out how you can get your name on this list, as well as a lot of other really cool perks, you can go to patreon.com/beerbusters to learn more. But now, let's settle up that tab.
Gonna pour another drink.
Say, Yvonne, remember when I said I'd have to send away to NASA to calculate your bar tab?
Oh, yeah. We all had a good laugh, Mo.
The results came back today. You owe me $70 billion.
Hey guys, we want to tell you about Audible. Audible has audiobooks available for download, and you can listen to them on the go, in the car, while you're jogging, while you're drinking beer. You can find books like Brewing Up a Business, Adventures in Beer from the founder of Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, revised and updated. Find books like that and more at audibletrial.com/beerbusters. Once again, go to audibletrial.com/beerbusters. Get a free 30-day trial of Audible and download and keep one audiobook forever. So I had this idea for the pretzel thing probably at least 6 months ago. And I wrote it down, and I just never came to a point where I was like, I'm actually going to do it. And I tried to do a Christmas theme music game, and I wasn't like coming up with anything interesting. And I was like, I'm going to do the stupid pretzel idea I had a long time ago.
The funny thing is, I knew that Snitz Creek beer was pretzel, and I was like, why would he do 2 questions that have pretzel at in a row? And that's why I didn't pick pretzel for that one.
What's the one I'm thinking of that was named something close to shoe fly?
Snitz Creek?
Shoe fly?
Was it just no? Because I feel like they wouldn't name it shoe fly if it didn't have shoe fly in it. Or didn't?
Well,
maybe it was fly
that's why I was
fishing?
just like, would Shoe Brew make something like that?
I don't know.
Because that was the only thing that came to mind. I'm just like,
Yeah.
what would be close to that?
I guess I'm just making it up.
Yeah, I Googled Snitz Creek Shoe Fly beer, and the first result that's a beer is the Shoe Fly Pie Porter from Lancaster.
Makes
Brewing.
sense.
So,
Yeah, I'm just making it up. Cool. All right.
yeah, I don't know. If I
Wouldn't
did,
be
I'm
the
not
first
seeing
time.
it. Fair
Sorry,
enough.
Snitz Creek.
They did do. Oh, they did the one. This one, the seltzers, the Smokehouse, Smokedale, the bologna one.
Yeah, I remember the bologna one.
I think-
When you started the question, I figured you were actually going to go with
Go
that.
to the bologna
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Go to the bologna.
Go to the bologna. That one.
Adam,
made-
I don't know how familiar you are with Lebanon, Pennsylvania, but on New Year's Eve, they actually drop a big Lebanon bologna.
I forgot about that.
You know, like how they drop, what is it, the apple in New York?
Isn't it just like a crystal ball?
Or whatever. I don't know.
Oh.
The thing they drop in New York, the ball. Yeah, it is a ball. Well, in Lebanon, they drop the Lebanon bologna.
That's fitting. That's very fitting.
I've never been, but I'm sure it's a grand old time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Especially if it's downtown. Downtown Lebanon's nice.
Yeah, I was going to say New York is the ball and Georgia is the peach.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
lots of places drop like weird
Things.
local things. Yeah,
Drop it like it's hot.
some places drop them like they're hot.
Drop a fried turkey.
They drop them in
Oh,
a
gosh.
manner as if they were hot.
So well spoken.
I was trying to come up with a
So
fancy way to
eloquent.
say hot, and I was like, nah.
An increased
No.
temperature.
Ha!
Well, so I know we said earlier what your future plans for the council were, and the projects you have going on that are very, very inspiring. But if we were to focus just a little more, what does the future hold for 412?
So 412, I will say this. I mean, being that this is year one of 412, it was sort of a feeling out process. So you can definitely expect more things as far as continuous production of top quality beers. We actually had our first reproduction of beers. So I don't know if you had the Cheddar Goblin last spring, but we brought that back, and this recipe is even better than the last. And same with the Kolsch. So we've kind of hit our stride to where we're starting to bring back some previous hit beers that are hitting the next year. Being winter, we plan on brewing some more dark beers because it is that season. And I anticipate, the fact that we'll have a regular library of, you can always expect a hazy or two, you can expect a fruited sour or two, you can expect a couple of dark beers and a couple of seasonals, and always one of those will be a crispy boy because we love crispy boys. And let's see. Beyond that, expect some more collaborations, expect us to turn up more at events, mind you, I'm trying to wind down my wrestling career, but expect me to keep wielding cans of my brews entering the ring. And are you guys over near the Philly area?
Well, Wayne and I are in Philly, and Steph is about an hour-ish outside.
The reason I mentioned that, it is possible. So Williamstown, New Jersey is where at the H2O Wrestling Center is where the Intergender Bonanza takes place. And I was at Intergender Bonanza 8 and 9 earlier this year, and I may be at Intergender Bonanza 11 or 12 next year. So either feel free to show up in person, or it will be televised on IWTV. But that being said, if I am there and if you guys can make it, since it's only 30 minutes from Philly, yes, you will see the trademark of me pounding a beer or two before I enter the ring.
That's awesome. Yes, yeah. Let us know when there's a date for that, and I would love to be there.
Well, I kind of want to. I want to go to this wrestling / beer fest.
Right?
Thing too.
Yeah. Same.
I mean, and I feel like
absolutely.
the Pilgaroo guys have to be the first on the list because that's literally right down their alley.
Well, the Pilgaroo guys will absolutely be included, and there's an outside chance that Tony Deppen will wrestle on this event. I mean, mind you, I'm kind of over the hill. If I was a little younger, I would be all about Happy Hour versus Tony Deppen in a brewery hardcore match.
Just challenge him to a drinking match. That's fine.
Oh, well, actually, he failed that one. So here's a fun story. So at the Drink the Cookie Table Festival, so the night before that festival, all the out-of-town brewers came in. So had the brewer from Dewey, had Pilgaroo, had Abomination, Prototype. They were all there. So so me and the guys from Pilgaroo hung out the night before. We also hung out with the dude from Dewey. And as we were hitting one brewery after another, and then the night ended at this dive bar that was across the street from the hotel where the out-of-town brewers are staying at. And the next morning I woke up in Dennis's living room, and I have no idea how I got there, but so be it. But when I woke up, it was 3 hours before I needed to be at the fest. So I got an Uber, remembered where my car was, and then drove home, cleaned up, and went straight to the fest. The guys from Pilgaroo and Abomination, they were looking rough. So it is official that Happy Hour can outdrink Tony Deppen any day of the week.
Oh, that's great. Nice. It sounds like a challenge. Sounds like Tony's got to step up and see what he can do and what he can bring to the table.
So yeah, if you ever get Pilgaroo on, feel free to bring that up with Tony.
Yeah. We've had a couple of the guys on from there before. I don't think we've talked to Tony himself yet.
No, you probably had Tyler and Conlon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
I mean,
but yeah. Because I was going to say Tony still wrestles, so he might be on the road pretty often.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And that's good that he's still able to do it. And I'm looking forward to the event. And I mean, let us know when that is scheduled, whenever it's safe to do so. And, obviously we'll promote it, and hopefully we can take a road trip out there and go.
Great. So also, are you guys in the Fueled by Hops group?
No.
No.
All right, so the Facebook page, join Fueled by Hops. So Ryan Galliotto is a guy you guys definitely want to know. Fueled by Hops definitely has a lot of connections in multiple states. And I'm actually going to try to partner with Ryan Galliotto and make it me and a Fueled by Hops type event for this beer and wrestling festival.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, that's fantastic. Well, if anybody out there wants to find anything out about 412, where should they go on the interwebs to find the information?
Well, right now, the best bet is Instagram, since that's our one page that we do a great job of staying on top of. So if you go to at 412 Brewing, you will find our Instagram page. And that is the most active social media we have. I know, I'm sorry, I'm practically almost a boomer relative to everybody else. So my personal social media skills are not the most impressive. However, on Facebook, you can find me as Adam Zane. You can find me as Wrestler Happy Hour. On Instagram, you can find me as Wrestler Happy Hour. And you can ask me any questions, and I'm happy to respond. And I usually do a pretty good job of responding within 24 hours.
Awesome. Well, good to know. And while you are looking for the aforementioned socials, remember, we exist online too: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Beerbusters. Facebook, Beerbusters Podcast. There's beerbusterspodcast.com. Don't forget to add /shop. YouTube, we are Beerbusters Podcast. There's patreon.com/Beerbusters as well. Get all of the fun goodies for as little as $1 a month. You can't beat that deal with a stick. I mean, you could, but you'd really just be beating your phone, and that's just weird. Adam, this was great, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, I had a great time, guys.
Same.
I appreciate it. I mean, just in general, when it comes to any type of media, I love it when people can enjoy the interaction, and that's my thing. I love interaction. I love having a good time, and I mean, if I sound like I'm having a good time, it's because I am.
That's awesome. That's great. And you have sounded this entire time like you were having a good time.
Oh, I love it.
And thanks for playing along with my stupid pretzel joke.
Boo earns.
I was saying boo earns. Oh, man. This sadly brings us to the end of another episode of Beer Busters. Definitely seek out 412 if you're in Pittsburgh. I can vouch for it. And I'm looking forward to getting back there to see what, especially what that Kolsch has turned into, because I've heard such great things now. Oh, man. And, of course, we want to say thank you for listening to this. And please, if you can, leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. But do that for all of the podcasts that you listen to, because that is kind of our currency, and that's how the algorithms get us in front of new listeners. So all of your podcasts will appreciate that. Well, my name is Dan Baker, joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hafner.
and the Demented and Fermented,
The Canadian Destroyer.
no squids were harmed this time, but we'll see you next time.
You're not Canadian.
No, I'm not. Nor am I a destroyer.
Funch Rap Supreme.
Funch Rap Supreme. There we go.
That's the best.